Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Man Cave. And yesterday was better than the previous 2 days, or maybe the previous 3 days. But it still had its issues, and we'll go through some of those. It's still not real easy being me, as you will see. First thing I want to do is remind you that this evening at 7 o'clock, we will start our free lessons on the mandolin. Again, I just want to explain, it's going to be super basic this evening. The first lesson has got to be super basic because you don't know what level of students you have that are tuning in, and we're going to start at the very beginning. I mean, like you won't get any more beginning than we're going to start. And then we'll get as much covered tonight as we can. We might even go a little longer than the planned 30 minutes because I want to get through all the basics and then maybe even get started in a little bit of the actual lesson. And, tonight, and then we'll do questions and answers. We're going to try to contain it to about an hour, though. Yeah, you know me. Easier said than done. We'll see how it goes. The laser cutter. Woohoo! It's working. Sort of. Let me just show you the video first, and then we'll go from there, and I'll fill in whatever details are left out of the video. Here we go. My friends, I am the first to admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong. It was the USB cable was the problem. I didn't think it would be because I tried so many different USB cables, and they just wouldn't work. And I've tried at least 6, and I tried all the different ports and and I even plugged it into a different computer, and it still wouldn't work. So then I thought, well, everybody said that the cable could be the problem. So I went back into my deep, dark storage pit and found some old USB cables. I had like some old USB-C cables. Look at this one here. This is a flat cable. That's the one that works. This is a flat USB-C cable. And anyway, that made it work. You can see it cut out a design. This is the sample design that it comes with. Did a great job. I absolutely love it. I am so excited to get it working. And thanks to those viewers who were, and bloggers, I guess you'd say, that were on my morning vlog that were insistent that it was the cable. So you were right. I was wrong. I know when to admit failure, and definitely it was the cable. So thank you for the suggestion. I'm glad I wasn't too stubborn to try another one. In fact, I didn't know where to find another one. I had to go back, like I said, into my deep, dark storage and finally found one, and sure enough, it worked. Yeah, there's what it looks like up close. I didn't sand it or anything. It's, anytime you cut anything with a laser, you'll get a little bit of that smoky look to your wood. That's fairly common. Generally, that sands right off. Even when I'm doing inlay on my instruments, you get some of that smoke. But it worked really, really well. It seems to be, that's the cutout there. It's really easy to operate, all that good stuff. I just did a real quick and dirty just etching just to see what it would look like. And Lightning is the name of one of Sue's horses. I just typed that in for grins. I didn't know what else to try. I guess what I had in mind is maybe making, labels or name tags or whatever you want to call it for each of the horse stalls or whatever. But that was what I was thinking when I did that. But it was just mostly just to test that I knew what I was doing to get it to work. And it, so I did that from scratch, obviously. And it worked just fine. Well, that's all the good news. Now the bad news. It's like you can't win for losing. Well, in my only way I can say it is that I guess I was so finally excited to get it working because I had been working on this thing for a couple of days and just couldn't get no response at all. So I was pretty excited. Well, in that excitement, you notice that I had the cover off of it there. And when I put the cover back on, I didn't hook up everything properly. And in other words, I did hook, the things I hooked up were proper, they were correct, but I forgot to hook up the power cable to the air assist. And, you know, I was looking around to make sure I had all the connections, and it looked like I did, but what happened was the power cable got coiled up under something, and I just didn't see it, you know, and it was one of those deals, and I just didn't think about it. And therefore, I started cutting out some more stuff. I started cutting out one of my logos, and I wasn't getting the power out of it that I should have been getting, and it wasn't cutting all the way through. And I tried, and I tried, and I tried, you know, and it just wasn't working. Went over it multiple times. It wasn't working. So I'm thinking, oh, what's going on? And it's the air assist wasn't on is the problem. Well, that wouldn't be so much of a problem if that was the only problem, but that because I didn't have the air assist on, well, then it smoked up the lens really bad, and I started getting lens warnings, and then it cut off the job. And so basically, I just kind of gave up at that point. I took the lens out, cleaned it, and all that. It didn't seem to help. Yeah. Anyway, so there apparently, I got to looking and doing some research. Apparently, there's a reset button that after you clean the lens, you have to push. Well, I don't remember seeing a reset button on mine. I really don't. There may be one there, but by that time I was already out of that mode, and I was up here, and I was just doing research on the internet, and so I haven't gone back down to check to see if there is a reset button and all that. But anyway, it's just not easy being me. You know, I get through the big hurdle, and now I created another problem, and all the problems I've had with it so far have been self-inflicted. It's like self-inflicted gunshot, you know. It's pretty much the way it is. But, you know, again, in my own defense, again, that little cable that it came with was, I mean, it's definitely not more than a meter long. So it's just, I'm calling it 3 foot long. And I had it sitting down here, and it was, you know, trying to get it connected to my PC. Well, that little short cable, that's hard to do. And I had it sitting right here on the floor. And so I was just moving it around, and that's what bent that cable and broke it. So in my defense, the reason I didn't know it was a cable problem was because I never got it working with the original cable. I mean, it never did work because I never got that far. So I didn't know, you know, like if you had it plugged in with the original cable and then you plugged in a longer cable and it didn't work, pretty easy to figure out. It's the cable. Well, that never happened in my case. So I didn't know what it was. And, you know, somebody suggested that it was the port, that I probably bent the port. Well, that was a real good suggestion, and I hadn't thought of that really. But yeah, it's a very good idea. So fortunately, I do have a high-powered magnifying high-powered microscope, and it's one of those kind that's got the arm that you can reach out over stuff and look down in it. So I just set it all up and got it ready, and I looked down in that port under that microscope, and everything looked perfect. I mean, it didn't look like the port was hurt at all. So I ruled that out as being a problem. And that's when I went and connected to the other PC in the shop in there. I had that other PC in the office. It still didn't work, and then that's when I went and tried one more cable, and sure enough, it worked. You know, and when you know, I don't know if that was the 7th cable for sure, but it was about that many cables, and it finally worked. Ridiculous. Just completely ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. You got me. That's all. I can't even explain that one. But it finally worked, and so now I just got to get over the next hurdle. Self-inflicted gunshot wound. That's the way I feel like it is. Oh my gosh. Anyway, then because I got so frustrated with that down there, after I screwed it up again, I was frustrated with myself. I thought, well, Sue's having trouble with her washing machine. So here's a short video about some of that. Well, you see this washing machine sitting outside. Got a stain on top of it. That's leather dye that Sue was working on a saddle or something and spilled it on there. But that has nothing to do with why it's outside. It's just been giving her trouble like crazy, this washing machine. Well, we had another washing machine that she used to use. It was a Speed Queen. The Speed Queen started giving trouble, and so we put it up in the old house, which you know is way over there. And so yesterday, I manually dragged the Speed Queen up the hill all the way from my workshop, because I took it to the workshop first to work on it, and then I drug it all the way up here with this dolly, all by myself. I mean, I'm still only 69. I'm not 70 yet. I guess I can do that. Then I put the Speed Queen in place here. The story on the Speed Queen is it was making all kinds of noise when it would spin things up. It was making real loud noises. I tested it 4 or 5 times yesterday in the shop, washed a bunch of shop towels, all kinds of things, just hooking it up to a garden hose with cold water. And I had no problem with it, so I brought it back up here and we put it back in place. We'll see how it goes this round. And the first question some of you have already thought of is, why on earth would you drag that machine all the way up this hill? You know, it's the length of a football field at least, and do that all by hand when you got all this equipment sitting around. Well, as luck would have it, at the moment I tried to do this, all the equipment was kind of in use. JR was working on his balers and tractors, and the road was blocked, and Sue was down there running something, and you know, it was just a mess. So and I just wanted to get it done, and so I just grabbed a hold of the dolly and pulled it up the hill and set it in place. And that was all I wanted to do after I got done. I didn't really want to do any more. That was pretty good pull up that hill. That Speed Queen's fairly heavy washing machine. Anyway, we got that in place, and that's going to work until it doesn't, and then I'll be working on that again. Whatever the original problem was that caused us to take it out, I'm sure that's going to rear its ugly head again. There's just no way that I could get lucky enough that it's fixed itself. There's not a chance. You don't know me if you think that could happen. Let's see. Here's just something. You didn't pay any extra for this. See that right there? To that holding all those remotes? That's just my remote caddy. I think I showed this a long time ago. But you know what? When you got a lot of remotes, I'm not lying to you, that's the handiest thing I've ever made in my whole life. I mean, seriously, when you think about how much you do with stuff like that, I just hang it on the side of the end table there, and I'm not kidding you. That's probably the one thing in my life that I use more than anything else is that remote caddy. It is so handy. So I just thought I'd point that out to you. They're very easy to make. I mean, you just take a real thin little piece of plywood that you can get at your, box store and just glue pieces together and hang it on the side of your table or whatever. But I'm seriously telling you, that has been the most helpful thing I think I ever designed on my own. It really is. So that didn't cost you any extra. Let's see. Today, plans are that I will probably take off today and spend time with the boys, because I think they're going to go home tomorrow. I'm not really sure about that, but I think they're going home tomorrow, and I know they're not here for much longer. So I'm probably just going to spend the day with the boys, maybe take them fishing, do something. I don't know what, but I need to do that. I've just been busy with everything, and I can't find 5 minutes, and I'm just going to make 5 minutes. And then, of course, this evening we'll have our training, but until then, I think I'm going to spend a lot of the day with the boys. Okay, let's see where we are, and let's look at the comments. John Pepper was the first one, David Tharp and Eddie Turner, and then let's see, the question mark there is from David Tharp. It says, those who like my posts are happier, smarter, and better looking than those who don't, according to a study I just made up. Well, I could make one of those up about watching the Rosa Stringworks YouTube channel, too. Let's see. Wayne Blitz says, good morning, Jerry. We finished baling first crop of hay last night. Hope all is well with everybody. Yeah, well, I think they're gearing up to get enough bravery there to start. They haven't started yet, I don't think. And again, they may be, I'm sure they're watching the weather to try to find a period of time where it won't get rained on. Every year it seems to get rained on. That was my dad. I'm not lying to you. You could be in the middle of the worst drought in the history of the free world. And if he cut hay, I guarantee you the drought would break. And that's just, I'm not lying. I don't think my dad ever cut hay when it didn't rain on it. It was just amazing. And we put up thousands and thousands of bales of hay with him. Let's see. Dottie says, prayers for the Rosas. Thank you very much. You're praying for those projects to fall into place. Boy, you are not the only one, let me tell you. Thank you, though. Appreciate it. It's just been something lately. And there's so many more. It's like you guys only see the tip of the iceberg, trust me. Dottie says, nice study, David. How was your hospital visit? Let's see. Tom Armstrong, good morning, Jerry. Do you think your mill building will reflect in the pond water? I can imagine it would make a great spot for artists. And yeah, that would be pretty cool. It would be a beautiful painting. You know, it would be really cool is if we could get Emery to do that. Emery, my daughter-in-law, she is like one of the best artists I've ever seen. I'm seriously telling you. I mean, I'm talking about comparing her to somebody like Rembrandt. I mean, this girl when she draws something or paints something, it looks like something. I mean, it really does. I mean, you can't even tell most of her drawings from a real, actual photograph. You can get right up close to them, and it's hard to tell the difference. It's amazing. It's just flat amazing. So it would be really cool if she would take an interest in painting it or drawing it or something after I get it done. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. But I'm hoping that it's going to be a picturesque place, and I'm going to try to make it look pretty cool and all that. That's the idea in my head. Can I get it out to the ends of my fingers and make it happen? I don't know. Brian Byler says, how do lifeguards get to work? They carpool. Let's see. Moving on down, looking for the question marks primarily. Beautiful day in East Texas, says Gary Cooper. Let's see. Bill Webb, good morning, Jerry, Rosa, and friends. And it scrolled on me here. Let me find it. Okay. Dottie, after we went live, it looks like she was the first, and she's asking if somebody has Jerry's luck. Carolyn says, I don't believe in luck. Well, I kind of the same way. I don't seem to ever have any. No, like I said, I'm the luckiest man on the planet. I really am. When you consider all things around it, there's nobody luckier. But on the little things, look out. Gary Hayden, Jerry, which have you enjoyed the most as a luthier, building or repairing instruments? I don't know. I like them both. I really do. I don't even know that I could put one ahead of the other. It's really cool when people bring you an instrument, though, that they don't think is either salvageable or they just maybe just want to make a wall hanger out of it, and you can turn it into a decent playing instrument. It's a pretty rewarding feeling, the repair part of it. I think that's probably more rewarding than the building, actually. Mostly because of the customer interaction. You can build a nice instrument for a customer and it's a good feeling, but when you repair something that means something to somebody and give it back to them, I think that's the most rewarding. At least that's the way it feels to me. Eric says, Jerry, will your mandolin lessons be recorded for viewing later? Well, they're going to be just like this, so they'll be out there. It'll be exactly like this. And so I'm going to try to come up with a good numbering convention, that you'd be able to just put them together. And, I'm going to try to keep the naming convention consistent also. So if you do a search, they'll all pop up, So that's the key to that, I think, is keeping that's why some people say, why do you bother putting RSW in all your videos? Well, you can search RSW chocolate and find that video series on the violin chocolate, or RSW saddle, and find different videos that have saddle in it or whatever. So it's just easy to do it that way. And I'll probably do this the same way. I'll probably do RSW mandolin lesson, probably just mandolin lesson 1, and maybe put another keyword in there like basics, which is probably what tonight is going to be. And then maybe mandolin lesson 2, RSW mandolin lesson 2, and then maybe something like, I don't know, chord shapes, something, I don't know, whatever makes sense. So it'll be out there. James Akers, Jerry, what is the best adhesive for metal to wood? Metal to wood. Let me think about that. Did I really even know of a good adhesive for that? Yeah, I don't know if I really did much of that. I think it would depend a whole lot on what you're talking about. Like, are you talking about gluing like your ferrules into the peg head? Or are you talking about gluing some kind of a plate underneath where the pins go? I don't know. I don't know that I'm the expert on that. I probably just don't have a good idea on that one. I know tight bond will probably be fine. Like if you were gluing your ferrules in, it'd probably hold it. I'll tell you that superphatic glue seems to be good for stuff like that too. So that'd probably work. The superphatic, I've found out that I didn't really know this until just the other day, that the superphatic glue is also very, very, very waterproof. Like, in other words, it's like the Tight Bond 3. You ain't going to break it with water once it cures. I had another paintbrush that I left in with the superphatic glue that I was spreading around. And you get busy and you just forget to go back and wash the darn thing. And sure enough, and I'm talking these little artist paintbrushes. I let it sit in hot water. Well, it started out hot water, and then I let it sit in the water for another 3 days. It's just as hard as a brick. It didn't soften, not one little tiny bit. So superphatic can probably be a good choice. Let's see. David Tharp says, I still can't make my universal remote control the universe at all. I think I got gypped. Yeah, you probably did. You got to watch these. Depends on where you buy that stuff from. The Outboard Tinkerer. Hi, Jerry. Have you seen the handheld scanners? You can make anything in miniature with a 3D printer. I sort of kind of have seen some handheld scanners, but I haven't necessarily connected the dots up to a 3D printer. That's what I'm really hoping that I can do something really good here with this Creality laser cutter. And, that they'll think enough of me that maybe they'll send me one of their best 3D printers, too. That's what I would like to get, because I've got a Creality 3D printer already. It was one of the earlier ones, and I'm not overly happy with it. I'm sure it can do way better than I've done with it. But, the technology's changed a lot since I got that, and so I'm hoping that maybe I'll get one of those down the road. Let's see, moving on down. Dee says she put a desk caddy in it for her remotes in a deep drawer. Yeah, and I like mine because it's just right there. I just reach over and just grab it. It's so handy, and I have them in a certain order on top of it, and I know right where they are. It just really has made it simple. Let's see. I'm not sure what that comment is. Sidecar Bob, now I'm working on my before 75 list. I guess a bucket list. Let's see. Double A says, do you have an opinion about Rich Light, Martin D16 GT used in the fingerboard? Well, I heard somebody else talk about that, and no, I don't know enough about it to have an opinion. Man-made materials for fingerboards are probably fine. Fingerboards don't add or detract much from your sound. I say that, and then here's a slight possibility or a caveat would be that A heavier material should give you more sustain in your instrument. So, a good solid heavy fretboard is probably better than a light, wimpy, softwood type fretboard. I mean, I would guarantee you that. But so depending on, the density of that rich light, if it's a good, heavy, dense, rich light material, then it's probably absolutely fine and maybe even slightly better. But I don't see that it would be much of a problem one way or the other unless it's just really weak material or something, and I would doubt they would even think about using it if it was. Cup of Cool. What, in your opinion, is the better choice for playing mandolin, thin picks or thick ones? I want to be ready for the lesson tonight. Well, you're actually bumping me into my lesson because that's going to be one of the topics for tonight, but I'll just go ahead and tell you anyway. It's thick picks. You definitely don't want to be using thin picks on a mandolin. It seems like that would make sense. Logically, I would have thought that myself, but it's not what you want to do at all. You want a heavy pick for a mandolin. And when I say heavy, but not crazy heavy. I mean, some people do go crazy heavy. They use like a 2 millimeter thick pick, and that's overkill if you ask me. But about a 1 millimeter thick pick is pretty good. Or a little bit even heavier than that's okay. Moving on down. BH Ringer, before I die, I am going to eat a whole bag of unpopped popcorn. That should make the cremation a little more interesting. That's funny. Simon Jardine, after our dryer made funny sounds, I stripped it to find a C-shaped thin piece of wire, molded plastic on the ends, a bra underwire. I handed it to my 5-year-old son and told him to ask his mom. Okay, and then he continues on. Noticed if some of wonkiness, her reply was just repeatable in front of a 5-year-old woman to have no sense of humor sometimes. David Tharp, light travels faster than sound. Is that why some people appear to be bright until you hear them say something? I hadn't thought of it, David, but that's a real good point. That's a real good point. I'm going to start thinking about that from now on. I can definitely use that line of thinking in the jury trial selection. Oh my gosh. I told you, some people are just eat up with dumb. I mean, like, eat up with it. They're dumb all the way to the core, and I'm just getting a Charlie horse, and I can't stand it. It's hurting so bad. Oh my gosh. That's what I get for talking like that. Oh! Oh, I got to keep my legs straightened out here for the moment. Oh my gosh. It's just not easy being me. Let's see. David Tharp says, I had to stop saying, how stupid can you be? Too many people were evidently taking it as a challenge. Definitely in the jury selection process, for sure. Zappa, metal to wood, adhesive, screws. Yeah, adhesive, use screws. Yeah, that's probably your overall best choice, except that it's probably not good if you're talking about an instrument. Bill Webb, it is so frustrating to me that I can't solder two wires together or to a tab on a potentiometer or whatever. I can't figure out I'm doing wrong. How about an instructional video on soldering? That's not a bad idea. And I've never, well, I shouldn't say never. It would be stupid to say that. I generally don't have problem soldering. I generally can do it fairly easily. There's a couple of things, first of all, your iron needs to be clean. If your iron is really contaminated, can cause problems. It doesn't always cause problems, but it can. So I always get my iron up real hot where the lead is melting on it, and then I wipe it with a dry paper towel. And you got to be careful. You don't burn yourself, but that wiping it with a dry paper towel will make it bright and shiny. And that's probably number one. Number two is the parts need to be pretty clean themselves. In other words, like if it's a dull colored a copper or something like that, is a copper, even the copper wire itself, if it's oxidized, that's not too good. So I either take like sandpaper or a wire brush or something and shine whatever it is I'm going to solder up pretty clean. And then if you're soldering with a soldering iron, then that's probably all you need to do. If you're soldering with a torch, which is not something you would do on an instrument, I get that. But if you're soldering with a torch, the trick of soldering with a torch is, for me, is you don't let the actual flame hit the exact spot you're trying to solder. You want to have the flame not contact the spot that's going to get soldered. In other words, like if you have a fitting going into a fitting, you want to heat the outside of the fitting. Don't let it heat right up on the neck, because it'll cause black oxidation, and it'll turn it and stuff. And as long as you put the heat on the part, it'll suck the solder in, and keep the heat off that. But on the regular soldering iron, I generally don't have too much trouble. I always use on soldering irons, I always use a rosin core solder, and I always use the really fine solder. Instead of the big, thick, heavy solder, I always use the real fine one, and it just works like a dream, So those are the points I would give you. But somebody else may feel completely different about it, because the soldering is one of those deals. It's kind of like playing a mandolin. There's a lot of snobs out there on the soldering thing. I've learned that too. And that's true. They think they know everything about soldering and that you know nothing about it. All I can tell you is I've never had any trouble with it, and I don't do it the way everybody says you have to do it. And again, I use the instant solder gun, the one that you pull the trigger and it gets hot. And a lot of people cannot use those, and there's two reasons. Number one, you don't keep the tip clean, but the bigger reason is, number two, you don't keep the tip tight. It has to be super tight. Those little bolts that are on the end there, you have to keep those tight. And as long as those are tight, you'll never have a problem with that solder. Those solder pistols, I love those things. That's all I ever use. I never use a soldering iron anymore. Never. It's just, I've got several soldering irons. I just don't use them because they're a pain in the neck compared to the gun. Because the gun's instant. You just turn it on, you're ready to go. And I don't have time to wait around for it to heat up. Bill Mumbo. They can rich light on Gibson Les Paul. They use rich light on Gibson Les Paul. Okay. For how long? I mean, like just recently, or they've been doing it forever? Because I've really not heard of the rich light much myself. Old Hickory. There's no question marks there. I'm still rubbing my leg. It's hurting. Sidecar Bob. Sorry, I posted before I finished typing. I said last summer I did a bunch of jobs I didn't want to have to do after I turned 70. Now I'm working on my before 75 list. Yeah. I think we've all got some of those. My list just keeps getting longer. It doesn't get shorter. Ben Boyd, still haven't found a decent mandolin for tonight's lesson. I've still got a few hours left to visit some local guitar stores. Wish me luck. Well, good luck on that. I hope you do find one. I'm trying to think of, it wouldn't be a loss if you don't have one tonight. as long as you can get one for the next one, because tonight I'm actually going to tell you that's going to be some of the basics. I'm going to tell you about what to look for in buying a mandolin, even if you're just buying a starter mandolin. I'm going to talk about a lot of that. It's really going to be basic stuff tonight. But there'll be a lot of helpful hints, in how to pick out a mandolin. And, like if you have a choice of this $35 mandolin or this $75 mandolin, is the $75 mandolin worth it, or is the $35 mandolin just as good? That kind of thing. And I'll be explaining what to look for and how you could probably tell which one would be a better choice. Chip Wood, do you have a water softener for your well? If so, what kind? Well, you know what, Chip? We had a water softener here when we moved in, the people that had it before. But it was, it was on its last leg, and it was just giving trouble. I just got rid of it, and we've been here 25 years, and I don't feel like we need it at all. Now where we used to live years ago, we needed a water softener because it would corrode up your toilets, your sinks, and everything. Don't get me wrong. These faucets here, like a dripping faucet or something, it will, calcify a little bit. But compared to any place I've ever lived with well water before, this barely does anything. Just barely does anything. I don't feel like we need a water softener here. So we don't have one anymore. They're a pain in the neck a lot of times. They really are. And if, I don't know, maybe the technology's changed. I'm dating myself. It's at least 30 years ago since we've had one, I think. And back then, you got to be careful with those darn things. They can flood your house. They just can cause as many problems as they can fix. So that's the only caution I'd give you, is be sure that it's installed well and you've got backups and things to shut that sucker off if something happens. I don't know. They can be a real pain. Outboard Tinker, I'm back to binding my resonator. Binding is a fraction below the wood height. Can I shim it? Well, what about putting a different thin binding under it? That's a lot more work. I get it, but that's probably what I would do if that was my two options. So, yeah, that is basically shimming it, but you'd be putting another decorative binding under it. Like say your binding is white, you could put a black piece under it or an off-white piece under it, or as far as that goes, you could put a white piece under it. You wouldn't be able to see it, but anyway, that's how I'd probably handle it if it was up to me to do it, I guess. BH Ringer, at my age, I am good at multitasking. I can listen, ignore, and forget all at once. That's anything I say could be held against me on that one. Michael Peters, my brother used to say, if stupid could fly, you'd be a jet airplane. I hadn't heard that one. That's pretty funny. Yeah, we had a whole lot of jet airplanes in Monday's thing. Oh my gosh. The lawyer was, he wouldn't change the way he said stuff for a reason. You know how lawyers are. And this guy he'd repeat it and he'd say it again and he'd say it exactly the same way, trying to put a little more emphasis on something, and they'd still just be stupid and couldn't understand what he was saying. It was bad. It just was bad. It was so bad. You just wanted to go over and just draw him a picture. And they're going to sit on a jury. Oh, man. It's scary. It's just scary. David Tharp, get what you are soldering hot enough to melt the solder. That is for sure. Yeah, you definitely want the part to suck the solder in, and that includes the wire if you're soldering a wire, or your connector on your pot or whatever. And that is a very good point if I didn't say that, but that's what I was kind of indicating with the torch. You want to get that part hot and let it suck the solder in. Let's see. DE, I can't afford a mandolin, so I'm going to pull out my trusty air mandolin. Well, that's fine, and you'll learn a lot. Let's see. Moving on here. Gary Cooper, my brother called me the flower of the family, a blooming idiot. David Tharp, well, there's no question marks. Let's see, moving on down. Bell Webb, good points on soldering. I'll keep those in mind. I have a big solder pistol with a trigger and a soldering iron. I'll just keep trying. Yeah, keeping the tip clean and the tip tight is the trick to the trigger guns. If that tip is not real tight, and I mean like you got to winch down on it, it's got to be tight. If it's not that kind of tight, it won't work. It just won't work. It's got to be tight. Chipwood, the reason I asked was mine is goner. Thanks for the suggestion. Okay, I forgot what it was about now, Chip. I remember you asking something, but I can't remember what it was, huh? Oh, water softener. Yep. Yeah, well, I'd say you might need it. I mean, it depends on your water. I mean, we definitely needed it at a place or two we've lived, but here we don't need it. It's just not that bad. Bill Mumbo, Rich Light 2012 till recently, Jerry, used to build digital dimming for lighting so I can solder reasonably. Oh, okay, I got you. Two different thoughts there. I run it all together. Yeah, I'm a really bad reader, as you already know. Gary Cooper, my air mandolin needs new strings, I think. Okay, let's see. Moving down. Eric Sandel says you may have to add rosin to get a better result. Yeah, well, that's what I said. I use the rosin core solder, and I use the thin solder. I mean, the real thin stuff. You can get it well, you used to be able to get it at Radio Shack. I don't know where you get it now, but I imagine they sell it at the box stores. But, you can get different gauges of wires and things. Well, I don't use the big heavy, especially for soldering electrical. I definitely don't want to use the big heavy solder. Now, if you're soldering pipes and stuff, then that's fine. But if you're soldering wire, I like the real thin solder that's rosin core. That stuff works first time, every time, won't give you any trouble. Moving on down, Paul Akers just did a fret job on a Martin guitar with Rich Light. Very difficult. It jumped on me. I lost it. Where did it go? I don't know where it went. Maybe he pulled it off? Yeah, I think he must have deleted it or something. Or it went away. I don't see it. Okay. All right, moving down. Bruce Moore, Jerry, a while back I asked you if you would stand behind a manure spreader. I think you misunderstood the joke. Would that not be very messy? Oh, yeah. No, I think I got your joke. Maybe I said something that made it sound like I didn't, but I think I remember your comment, and yeah, that would be not the good play. I've been watching Ingalls Coachworks, or whatever his actual title is, I can't remember. But Ingalls out there in Montana, he has been rebuilding his own manure spreader. Man, it looks like $1 million the way he's built it. Almost too nice to use it for spreading manure. But anyway, yeah, manure spreaders. If you've never seen one in operation, and I have. They sling that stuff. It's amazing. They'll sling it 20 feet in the air. It's crazy how far they sling that stuff. Yeah, you wouldn't want to be behind one. David Tharp. Hey, Jerry, I have the world's greatest air mandolin ever imagined by a human. Yeah, that theme sounds kind of familiar. Theron Corbett, sharp as a tack and twice as flat-headed was the singer around my neck of the woods. Yeah, that's another good one. Flux for soldering is what helps if needed. Yep. And that's why I said I use the rosin core solder. That provides all the flux you need. You don't need any more with the rosin core. I really like the rosin core because that way you don't have to deal with the flux issue. Now, if you're soldering pipes, then generally you're going to need some flux. And I do generally use it with the flux, with the pipes. David Thorpe. I'm not going there, David. I'm not going to be political on this. I think let me rephrase it. I think all politicians are great manure spreaders. All of them on both sides of the aisle. They spread it better than anybody I know. Bill Mumbo, I use flux paste, Jerry. Helps stop contaminants. Try restringing a ukulele and tune as per mandolin. Oh, okay. Well, you might be able to do that. I really don't know if you can. I've never messed with a ukulele enough to know if it'll tune like a mandolin or not, but it might. But yeah, you can basically learn what I'm going to show you on a ukulele just as easily, as long as you just pretend it's a mandolin. Guys, I think that's going to be it for today. Thank you for being here. 168 viewers at the moment, and it's just, why did it just scroll all the way to the top? The weirdest things that happen to me. I swear, these things just can't happen, but they do. It scrolled all the way back up to the top. Yeah, Ronald Todd says he subscribes to Ingalls. Yeah, he is good. He's a good guy. You can tell that he's a good, honest fella and that he just, got a heart of gold type kind of guy. So I really like to watch his stuff. Well, guys, that's going to be it. We will see you tomorrow with something else. Wish me luck with the boys. I hope I can find something that'll keep their interest today and try to spend some time with them. We'll see you tomorrow with something else.